Think of this. If Roman Reigns headlines this year's WrestleMania, that will be 4 in a row. 4? Who is he? Hulk Hogan? I think not. That's not his fault, of course. If my boss asked me to do that, I wouldn't say no. However, in some fans' eyes, this is selfish because they believe other people deserve that spot, not the big dog. This isn't exclusive to the main event at the show of shows, though, and ever since its inception, there have been some performances that would make you raise an eyebrow and go, wait, that doesn't seem right, partner, and maybe it's not. But it happened, and only one person benefited. I'm Simon from What Culture, and this is the 10 most selfish WrestleMania performances. Number 10, John Morrison at WrestleMania 27. Not a lot happened at WrestleMania 27. I mean, what was the main event? If you took longer than 5 seconds to figure it out, that kind of sums it up. The answer is, of course, The Miz versus John Cena with The Rock. Yep, that was then. It was also the card to boast the bizarre encounter between Dolph Ziggler and Lay Cool going against John Morrison, Trish Stratus, and of course Snooki, aka that girl from Jersey Shore. It was short as it should have been at around 4 minutes, and neither Morrison nor Ziggler were the legal man at any point. The finish came after Snooki cartwheel splashed into Michelle McCool, and that's where Johnny Boy saw his opportunity. I would guess, knowing where the most publicity was going to come from, Morrison simply sidestepped a Trish hug attempt to grab the reality star instead. Well, that's one take anyway, because the rumor at the time was that Morrison was upset that girlfriend Melina wasn't given a spot on Mania, whereas Stratus, who had retired in 2006, was. So either way you look at it, that's a selfish move by John. Should have just hugged everyone and celebrated the win, because really, what a huge victory it was. Number 9, The Undertaker at WrestleMania 31. Given that The Undertaker suffered a huge loss at WrestleMania 30 after Brock Lesnar conquered his streak, he should have vanished from WrestleMania 31 no matter what the plan was. I don't care if Shawn Michaels had agreed to go around with the dead man again. To really sell what had happened 12 months prior, Taker should have taken the year off. Imagine what that would have done at 32 when he took on Shane. Exactly. On top of that, look what we got at 31. The Undertaker took on the once heir to his throne in Bray Wyatt, and on paper that sounded great. That piece of paper means nothing though when the whole thing feels flat even before the two men go head to head, and that was the case here. The Phenom didn't even appear on Raw leading up to the event, so just turned up in California, beat Wyatt pretty easily, and then just went on with his business. I'm not saying that Taker should have lost on back-to-back Manias, but this was average at best, and when all was said and done, helped nobody, and in that sense, it was a tad selfish. Number 8, Shane McMahon at WrestleMania 32. Switching gears to the man we just mentioned, at least fans were super excited about the idea of Shane versus Taker at Mania. Hell, the announcement helped sell more tickets and increase Raw ratings. For that, you gotta take your hat off to the man, and if you don't wear a hat, just bow or salute. Once things got going, however, the prelude hit a bit of a wall as Taker was made out to be Vince's patsy, and the Hell in a Cell match itself was poor. This wasn't helped with the idea behind the whole thing. If Shane won, he was going to be given proper power to change things up, which was appealing to fans. They wanted to see a big twist in programming, so this just divided everyone on who they wanted to win. But nobody thought McMahon actually beating Taker at Mania was a good plan, but if he lost, what was the point of any of this? It got even more ridiculous because Shane was then portrayed as being a physical threat to Taker and went toe-to-toe with him. The only reason he lost is because he had the bright idea to throw himself off the top of the cell and almost kill himself. It was a cool spot, but it was the only takeaway from this, which was the point. The middle McMahon wanted his moment, and he did what he had to do to get it. Number 7, Triple H at WrestleMania 32. Now, this wasn't really anyone's fault. However, I can still understand the argument to the contrary, all things considered. But after WWE's plans kept changing as we rolled into WrestleMania 32, it was indeed Triple H who would stand in the way of Roman Reigns grabbing the WWE title. The problem there was that no one ever truly believed the game was going to retain here. It had been different the year before, because it was actually difficult to choose between Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. But Triple H wasn't going to hold this title for longer than he already had. It's as clear as day. This all took another thump to the gut when we were already about 6 hours into WrestleMania, and then Triple H and Reigns decided to go way too long. The audience was worn out anyway, and what should have been a rough and tumble spot of nonsense was a drawn-out wrestling bout that no one could stomach. It was nice Triple H wanted to put Reigns over his way. That doesn't mean it was the right time or the right place. Number 6, Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 22. At WrestleMania 21, Shawn Michaels had an all-time classic against Kurt Angle. At WrestleMania 23, he headlined the show in a great main event with John Cena. In between those, he took on Vince McMahon. This Mania as a whole was average at best, and that really was because the roster wasn't used as well as it could have been. Edge and Mick Foley had a barn burner, and yes, that's a pun, but everything else was largely forgettable. And that's not to say McMahon and Shaw wasn't entertaining on some level. It was a hardcore match that had loads of bells and whistles, including interference from the Spirit Squad and Shane McMahon. Hell, Vince even tried to shove HBK's face in his ass. And who doesn't want to see that? But can you imagine how much more memorable this pay-per-view would have been had we gotten, say, Michaels versus Rey Mysterio? I'd have liked that. Unfortunately, Vince had other ideas. Number 5, Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 13. The plan way back in the day was as follows. Bret Hart would lose in an Iron Man match to Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 12, giving Michaels his first WWE title win. Lovely. This would then result in a rematch a year later where the favour would be returned and Bret would stand tall. Of course, as we know, the two hated each other, and as the Heartbreak Kid didn't want to lose to Hart after thinking about it, he forfeited the championship on a Raw in February 1997, and he claimed he hurt his knee and that he'd lost his smile. Naturally, this wasn't all bad because my word did things work out for Hart. He took on Steve Austin in one of the best matches ever and kind of kick-started the Attitude Era to boot. Not a bad evening all around, even if the championship scrap between The Undertaker and Sid was forgettable to say the least. Where was Shawn at Mania 13 though? Because he definitely wasn't wrestling. Well, he still had to be involved, so he joined commentary for the evening and basically cracked jokes and put himself over the entire time. Sweet. Number 4, Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 8. At WrestleMania 8, WWE Champion Ric Flair defended the title against Randy Savage, who was in the midst of a comeback that made him one of the company's top babyfaces all over again. The two men had a bout that was, up until that point, the best WWE Championship match in WrestleMania history. Did that go on last though? Of course it didn't, because Hulk Hogan and Sid Justice were warring as well, and that had to take center stage. This, of course, was because Hogan wouldn't let anybody else go on after him, so WWE just threw a career stipulation into the mix, because it sounded like a fun thing to do. What's worse, not only was it not great, it didn't even have an ending because the whole thing fell apart. There was a weird DQ and then the Ultimate Warrior returned, so there was some happiness to the whole thing, but all of this was the wrong way round, simply because the Hulkster was feeling a little bit selfish. Number 3, Triple H at WrestleMania 31. This is still odd really. When it was finally announced that Sting had signed with the WWE, we all wanted Sting versus The Undertaker. Okay, maybe Vince McMahon didn't get it or whatever, but what we did get made no sense. Firstly, when Triple H did get the nod, we were told that both he and Sting had equal standings in both WWE and WCW when the Monday Night Wars reigned supreme. I guess there's an argument for that, but there's also a big one against it. During the match itself, Sting was even associated with the NWO, which was the complete opposite of what the story was. Anyway, even then it was still fun and the smoke and mirrors that came with this worked, but then Triple H won. What? This was Sting's debut match. There's no way that was the right move. On the same night too, the game returned for that angle with Ronda Rousey that's only just being paid off now. That is a lot of time for someone to take on the biggest show of the year with no culmination. Number 2, Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 9. By WrestleMania 9, it looked like there was a changing of the guard. Bret Hart was the WWE champion and riding high as the company's top babyface, and he'd be defending the title against Royal Rumble winner and unstoppable heel Yokozuna. Meanwhile, Hulk Hogan was back, but he was on the undercard in a match for the tag team titles, and that was nice. Gotta see everyone you wanted, but the winds of change were in play. The main event was good too, with Yoko and Bret having a proper war, until Hart locked in the sharpshooter on the big man. While he was applying the hold, interference from Mr. Fuji blinded Hart, and Yokozuna soon managed to hit a leg drop that gave him the WWE Championship. Oh, what a terrible world. Hogan then came out to check on Hart, who was still blinded, and then for some daft reason, Fuji challenged him to an impromptu championship match. Hart told Hogan to accept, and he did, and a minute later, he won a damn belt. So even though he'd already wrestled and wasn't the headline attraction, Hulk Hogan still walked away as WWE champion. If that isn't one hell of a selfish act, well, it just is. It just is. Number 1, Triple H at WrestleMania 19. Heading into WrestleMania 19, WWE decided to put on one of the most disgusting feuds in company history. World Heavyweight Champion Triple H started to attack number 1 contender Booker T with some thinly veiled racist insults, which was instantly terrible. Because of course it was. This was justified backstage as Booker T was going to win the eventual title match. The bad guy would get his, and everything would be solved in the end. Of course, that logic is ridiculous, and doesn't mean you can just do whatever you want on TV, and it got even worse when someone, you assume that was Triple H, convinced the higher-ups that actually he should win, and not lose the title, even though he'd been a piece of shit the entire program. So yeah, plans were changed and Triple H went over, which included hitting the pedigree and then waiting about 20 seconds before actually covering Booker T, and he still got the victory. Fans are conditioned to think that delays like that lead to kickouts, so the ending was flat and just made everyone groan. No one wanted this outcome, and it made everyone really, really sad.
Gosh, can you believe that person said that about that particular video on that entry? I sure can't. But you should like, share and subscribe below anyway. And also, the people who made this video, they're right here. Go follow them and give them some love. Also, there's more content, probably above my head. Check it out. Or don't. 50-50.